welcome to this episode. We're talking about what you can do for the end of the year to avoid a lot of losses and not pay us any more tax than you need to pay.
Welcome to Label on Fire with Label Sternbach, the financial independence and retirement show dedicated to helping you build the life of your dreams as fast as possible with as little stress as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Label on Fire.
Hi, everyone. I'm Freddie Bell, and welcome to this episode of Label on Fire. And joining me right now is Label Sternbach. He's an incredible author. He's a great resource for everything financial. Label Sternbach, hello, and welcome back, sir.
Hey, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing really well. I'm trying to keep a close eye on the market because it's getting close to the end of the year. And I'm wondering, as we start to close out 2022, if you might have some tips on how we can take advantage of our losses in the market if we have any, or maybe on the other side, if we can really leverage to make a bit more money before we close out 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. So end of the year is a great time to start looking at your taxes because you have an idea of how much income you're going to have earned for this year. And that gives you the ability to actually do some real tax planning and to really take steps to minimize your tax bill. There are things that you can do after December 31st, but the vast majority and the best stuff is before December 31st. And so highly recommend, right? It's something that I do for all my clients is end of year tax planning. And we look for what we can do to maximize our exclusions, our deductions, our credits. And then we look forward and say, okay, what can we change for next year? Knowing that this is what we've done and the things that we wish we could have taken advantage of that we can do for next year to further decrease our tax bill. Because let's face it, the markets, we don't control the markets. We can manage our investments as best as we can, but the markets will do what the markets will do, right? And in retirement, we need every penny we can. So we're going to try to manage that as best as possible. But taxes is something that once you owe it, it's forever gone. And so we need to, every penny that we can save on taxes is a penny more in our pockets. Markets come up and down, inflation, nothing we can do about it. Taxes, there's always something you can do about taxes.
So speaking of taxes, tell me about tax harvesting, tax loss harvesting.
Yeah, so tax loss harvesting, probably one of the best things to do. And I should preface this by saying, you need to be in a position where it'll do you some good, right? And that's one of those things that doesn't happen overnight. It takes years of working to get yourself into a position where tax loss harvesting is something that really pays off dividends. And that's a little bit of a pun, and you'll see in a second. But tax loss harvesting, at its most basic, is my account is down in value. Let me harvest all those losses, right? Just think you're going through the field and you're harvesting those losses. And you're not going to pocket those, and you're going to use them for some time in the future to reduce your future tax bill. And you can do this with gains and you can do this with losses, but losses are the most beneficial because it offsets those gains. And even a small part of that can be used to offset ordinary income. Now, here's the best thing, right? I said it takes some years to get into a position where you can really use that tax loss harvesting and really benefits you. Vast majority of people have their money in retirement accounts. If you move and you work to get your money out of those retirement accounts, so you're not subject to require minimum distributions, what you can do is make it so that all of your gains in your taxable accounts are completely offset by losses. Because what's the one thing that we know for certain about the markets? The markets are volatile. They go up and down. And so in the moments where the market goes down, it doesn't have to stay down for very long. But let's say it goes down 5% one day, right? If we harvest that loss and capture it and we ride the market back up, right? But we harvest that loss, put it in our pocket, we can offset it again in the future. We can offset it when we're selling for income so that our taxable income in our taxable base in retirement is much lower.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It's definitely work. Saving money on taxes and making money in the markets is not easy work, right? It's not a fire and forget it. but it's something that can make a huge difference in your retirement if you do it properly. And you shouldn't do this yourself, right? This is why you pay advisors, is to do things like this.
Everybody, Leibel Sternbach with us this weekend, and we're talking about what you can do for the end of the year to avoid a lot of losses and not pay us any more tax than you need to pay. Talk about a Roth conversion.
Yep. So a Roth conversion is what I like to call it is tax arbitrage. And tax arbitrage is fundamentally, it means taking advantage of a mismatch in pricing. For instance, let's take a basic example. Let's say I am buying cotton, right? Or I'm buying oil, right? Or let's take oil, right? So oil in Saudi Arabia, oil is $100 a barrel. And in Texas, it's $90 a barrel. So there's a price mismatch of $10 a barrel. So if I were to buy oil in Texas and I were to sell it on the open market, I would be able to arbitrage that and get that $10 of profit, right? It's the same thing, same value, right? And I can realize that difference. When we look at taxes that way and we add in a factor of time, so it's not just right now, it's also in the future, and we say, okay, right now my taxes are lower or my taxes are higher, and in the future they're going to be lower or they're going to be higher, right? And I can control my taxes because this is something that I actively work on, is to control my taxes. I can take advantage of that mismatch in pricing. So let me give you a perfect example of that. I'm working, right? Working towards the end of your career, you're probably making the most amount of money you're ever going to make, right? Which means you're in the highest tax bracket possible. Now, what happens when you retire? What's the first thing that happens? You lose your W-2, right? You stop making income and you have to start taking money from your retirement accounts. Now, there's this period from when you retire until the IRS requires that you take required minimum distributions from your retirement account, right? Which right now it's at age 72 and might get pushed out to age 75. So you have this opportunity, this time period where you need to take money from your retirement accounts, but the IRS doesn't require you to take them yet, and you're in the lowest tax bracket possible so you're at zero, right? Because now you get to control how much income you have for the next, 10 years, 5 years, 7 years, until you are required to take RMDs. You control your income, which means you control your tax rate. So you can decide when and where and how to take your income. And maybe you'll take a little bit more 1 year because you're in a lower tax rate to convert it, pay taxes on it up front in those low years, so that in the future, you're not paying more money. And so a Roth conversion is taking advantage of that mismatch in pricing. And it's taking money from your traditional retirement account, your traditional IRA. You pull that money out, pay taxes on it, and then put it into this Roth IRA account where it grows tax-free. When you take the money out, it's tax-free. The only caveat is you got to have it in there for 5 years or more. Otherwise, you get hit with a 10% tax penalty.
Well, Leibel Sternbach talking about how we can really maximize our money. And you were just talking a lot about taxes there. What about the tax code? What should we be looking at? Are you aware of any changes that are happening right now that could really impact our retirees?
So the biggest thing that's on the horizon the two things that I really worry about, number one is we have the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which one of the biggest provisions in it is that it inflation adjusts the tax brackets. And so that means that the tax brackets where they are right now, they weren't there 15 years ago. And the Tax Cut and Jobs Act was 2018, 2019. If it goes back to those levels, it's really low numbers. And that will automatically bump people into higher tax brackets. So that's something that I worry about is, what happens when the Tax Cut and Jobs Act expires and the tax brackets automatically by default will increase, right? Or rather the brackets will decrease and everyone's going to jump to a higher tax bracket. What happens at that point? Now, here is what worries me about it. Okay, tax code changes with every administration. Every 4 to 6 years, it's constantly changing, right? That's nothing new about that. What I'm worried about is that we have interest rates are rising, which means that our federal deficit, which is at $30 trillion, the payment that our government has to make in order to meet those obligations, in order to pay the servicing cost, the minimum payment on that debt, it's going to increase over time. And as that increases, they're going to need to generate revenue from somewhere. And I can totally see our Congress being deadlocked and not passing a bill, and them intentionally not passing something when the Tax Cut and Jobs Act expire, because they need the revenue to cover those tax payments, to those interest payments. I can see them letting it expire without a new bill, or with an inadequate bill that doesn't inflation adjust the tax brackets intentionally, so that it harms the average American, because that's who gets harmed the most by that. And it increases their tax base. And they're just going to point the finger at the other party and say it's their fault. It's their fault, especially now we have Congress is really, the Senate and the House is very close. There isn't a clear majority. It'll be very easy for them to do this. And that is really what scares me, is that will happen. And then everyday Americans will pay a lot more money. And this will fall especially on retirees. And there's going to be no blowback on every party is going to think it's an advantage to them. So it's not like one of those things like cutting Social Security where everyone's going to get upset. It's whichever party thinks they have the most to gain is going to benefit.
Is there any value in people like you and me writing our Congress people to say, look, let's take care of this legislation so that it doesn't impact me negatively?
Honestly, I don't think so. I think that this is something that is going to be decided by the powers that be long before anything happens, and then they're going to stage it. It's going to be one of those staged things where is either going to be used for political leverage, or it's going to be used to promote agendas, fiscal agendas. But it's not something that I think we have any control over. The only control we have is making sure that our taxable income is something that we control and Congress doesn't control, because that's the only way we can control which tax bracket we're in. If we leave it up to Congress to control what tax bracket we're in, they're going to bump us up and blame the other party.
We're just about out of time, Leibel. How can we get more information about our taxes and what we can do for year-end? I'm calling it year-end maintenance.
So on my website, yieldsforyou.com, I have an article called End of Year Tax Moves for a down market. There are specific things to take advantage of a down market. Go there. I also have a class on my website. This one you actually have to pay for, and it's updated every single year, and I hold regular webinars on. It is how to ethically pay zero taxes in retirement. A large part of it talks about different things that you can do. It goes very much in depth. We have coming up, I teach a regular class on the same topic, not as in depth. If you sign up, if you download that guide, how to ethically pay zero taxes in retirement, you'll get an invite to the next class that I give.
Wow. Leibel on Fire, and the website is yields4u.com. Yields, the number 4, the letter u.com. Leibel Sternbach is the man. Do you have a final thought for us? We have about 30 seconds.
You absolutely control your taxes in retirement. The goal is to control how much income gets recognized as taxable. And don't look to your accountant for how to do this. This is something that you need someone who specializes in tax forward planning, and you need to take control of that. That is something, work with a tax advisor who can help you find those things for the future. Your tax preparer will not help you with that.
Taking advantage of the market and making sure that you don't have to pay any more taxes than necessary. He's Leibel Sternbach. This is Leibel on Fire. I'm Freddie Bell, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for being with us.
If you would like to see how the Yields for You team can help you get off the Wall Street roller coaster and save you money on taxes so you can live the life of your dreams, book an appointment online at yieldsforyou.com. That's yieldsforyou.com. Or call 410-914-4894. That's 410-914-4894.
Yields for You is a registered investment advisor in the state of New York and only transacts business in states where the firm is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement. Information presented on this program is believed to be factual and up to date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. Discussion should not be construed as an offer to buy or sell or solicitation of any offer to buy or sell the investments mentioned. Annuity guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Content should not be viewed as legal or tax advice. Always must consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation.
Welcome to Label on Fire with Label Sternbach, the financial independence and retirement show dedicated to helping you build the life of your dreams as fast as possible with as little stress as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Label on Fire.